Hello everyone. In this session, we will be discussing the sedimentation aided with coagulation. Already we understood the meaning of the sedimentation. It is a process wherein we will be removing some of the particles that will be in a suspension. Since we are giving some rest to the water in terms of the detention period by increasing the length of the tank or increasing the area, so they will be brought into the bottom that we remove it as a sludge. So whenever the particles which are of smaller size, they do not get attracted by the gravity and they keep floating in the water, that has to be removed by some alternative method. In order to remove the particles such as the fine colloidal particles suspended in the water, so we will be going for the another process. We call that process as the coagulation. This will also be associated with the or followed by the sedimentation. That is why we use the term sedimentation aided with the coagulation. Why the colloidal particles get suspended in the water? Since most of the colloidal fine suspended particles, for example, it may be a clay particles, they will be negatively charged. Since the charge is same, they repel each other and they remain in the suspension. So because of that repelling action, they doesn't come to the bottom and settle down. So in order to make them settle, we will be adding some chemicals called coagulants into the water. They make out successfully in order to remove the colloidal particles. What happens in the process? Let us understand. Here let us see the theory of the coagulation. Here we can see some diagram. We have written it as, so here some particle we can see, that is electronegative colloidal particle. As we already told, colloidal particles will be negatively charged. Once these particles are present in the water, they will be surrounded by the rigid or bound layer of the water. That layer we call it as a stern layer. In this layer, again, here it is a negative charge, and here in complete layer there is a positive charge. So when we add a chemicals called coagulants, they will form a layer wherein the neutralization of the charge takes place. That final layer we are seeing, this layer we are calling it as a diffuse layer. Here we can see the neutralization of the charge. Once the charge gets neutralized, the particles comes to the bottom. They get settled out. How the process takes place, let us understand. See, first of all, when we add the chemical called coagulant into the water, they form a gelatinous precipitate called floc. So this will be a sticky material. That gelatinous material, gel-like material, we call it as a floc. Once it makes out a floc after reacting with the water, so then this floc will be very sticky. So whenever, for example, this is a colloidal particle which will be present, like that there will be many colloidal particles that will be present in the water. Since I have formed a floc like this sticky material, it go and stick surrounding to the one particle. So when I give a continuous process of mixing, that we call it as a flocculation. So the continuous slow mixing, we call it as a flocculation. So once I start mixing, this particle rotates, and when it comes in contact with the other particles, it also makes this particle to stick to this one. So this process of flocculation makes agglomeration of the particles, which means this kind of particles which will be sticked by the floc comes close to each other and they form a mass. So the agglomeration of the particles will be taking place. Due to this agglomeration, so the weight of the particle gets increased and readily they come and settle to the bottom. So to do this, what we do is, after giving sufficient flocculation, that is slow mixing, we will be sending the same water to the sedimentation tank. In the sedimentation tank, after giving some small amount of detention time, the particles will come and settle to the bottom. This is the idea behind the coagulation. This is one of the process that is universally adopted in all the treatment plants. Usually sedimentation is followed by the coagulation, and many chemicals are available for carrying out the coagulation, and it works out to be most economical whenever we go for a sedimentation after giving the coagulation. Coagulation is a process that includes addition of the chemical called coagulant which forms a floc, and floc is mixed thoroughly by the process of slow mixing, we call it as a flocculation, and whole of this process we call it as a coagulation. So on two main principles the coagulation works. One is the floc formation, that is a gelatinous precipitate formation that sticks to the particle. Once they get stick to the particle size gets increased. When we give out a slow mixing called flocculation, all the particles come close to together and they agglomerate and they create a mass. When they create a mass, they have to settle down to the bottom. That is one principle. Another principle is charge neutralization. As we told, the particles, the colloidal particles will be negatively charged, and the coagulants or the chemicals what we add is positively charged. When they come close together, the charge neutralization takes place. Since the same charges repel each other, they were in a suspension. Now, due to the charge neutralization, they readily come to the bottom and settle down. So, because of that process, it becomes easy for us to separate all the fine suspended colloidal particles from the raw water. Next, let us discuss the various chemicals that are used in the coagulation. First one, let us take up the use of the alum. Alum is universally used coagulant. Alum is a name we use it for aluminium sulfate. The chemical formula for which is Al2SO4 trice 18H2O. So, to call aluminium sulfate, we will be calling it simply as a alum. Let us check out how the reaction takes place when we add alum into the water. Once we add alum into the water, the same formula we have written it here. So, it reacts with the bicarbonate alkalinity. We know whenever alkalinity, that is CaCO3, it may be in terms of a calcium carbonate, or else it may be in the terms of a calcium bicarbonate. Okay, so here I am taking out calcium bicarbonate. Whenever we add alum, it reacts with the calcium bicarbonate present in the water and gives rise to the development of calcium sulfate and then AlOH3, that is aluminium hydroxide. Since OH group is present, it settles to the bottom. This is a precipitate that settles to the bottom. Plus, it gives rise to the development of carbon dioxide. So, carbon dioxide, since it is a gas, it escapes to the atmosphere. Only one disadvantage of the reaction here is it gives rise to the development of CO2, that is carbon dioxide, which is a very corrosion causing gas. That is one disadvantage here. And also it gives rise to CaSO4, that is calcium sulfate. Calcium sulfate is one of the property that induces permanent hardness to the water. Whenever the raw water available is not sufficiently alkaline, we will be adding the external alkaline materials like lime or else the soda ash. So whenever we are adding that into the water, whenever we are going for the coagulation, the reactions will be like this. This is the chemical formula we use it for the alum, that is Al2SO4 tries 18H2O, plus this is the CaOH2 is the chemical formula for the lime. So the alum reacts with the lime and gives rise to the development of calcium sulfate, aluminium hydroxide, which readily settles to the bottom, and successfully we can create the flock material. And here it is a 18H2O, the remaining things in the reaction. Next, alternatively, if you are not adding lime, you can go for another alternative, that is a soda ash. So soda ash formula is Na2CO3. So this, to the same alum, if you are adding soda ash to increase the alkalinity, the reaction will be 3Na2SO4 plus here AlOH3, that is aluminium hydroxide. Again it gives rise to the development of carbon dioxide that escapes into the atmosphere, and also here it is a H2O. Since carbon dioxide is a very corrosive gas, we need to handle it properly. Let us now check what are the advantages and disadvantages of using the alum as a coagulant. Let us now first check the advantages of the alum as a coagulant. It is quite cheap when we compare to other types of the coagulants what we are using. So since even though it is quite cheap, but it works very effective in formation of the flock. The flock that is formed is very strong in removal of the fine particles, and also here in this case skilled supervision is not at all required. Any unskilled person can also handle the coagulant, but the dosage of that should be predetermined, and we have to instruct the person to add the prefixed dosage of the coagulant. And next is, it has proved very effective throughout the world. Throughout the world we are using the alum as a coagulant, even though other types of the coagulants are available. Lastly, it gives out a water which is very clear. Along with that, it also helps in reducing the color and odor, along with the removal of the turbidity. These are the main advantages of the alum. And what are its disadvantages? As we told, the flock that is formed sticks to the colloidal particles and that gets settled to the bottom. So in other cases, the sludge what we get in the sedimentation tank will not be that much sticky because we are not using any chemicals which is gelatinous. Here in this case, the sludge what we get is completely gelatinous, and dewatering of the sludge is very difficult. That means when we want to get the dry sludge for the disposal, it is very difficult to get the dry sludge. So cost of recovery, what we spend the amount is around 1/4 of the cost of the recovered material. Because of this, the recovery of the sludge, the material what it has got settled, is very difficult. These are the disadvantages with the use of alum as a coagulant. Next, let us check the another coagulant. Next chemical we are using it for the coagulation is the use of copperas as a coagulant. Copperas is the name we use it for ferrous sulfate. So ferrous sulfate has the chemical formula FeSO4 7H2O. This is the chemical formula we use it for the ferrous sulfate. Generally we call it as a copperas. So apart from using alum as a coagulant, this stands second when we compare the usage. So this is the reaction. So always when we go for coagulation, we need some alkalinity in the water, that is pH above 7. So some alkalinity it may be present in terms of the calcium bicarbonate. If it is not present, we will be going to add a artificial alkalinity. If water is acidic, the reaction won't be taking place. So artificial addition of the alkalinity also helps us to continue with the reaction. First of all, let us check, whenever natural alkalinity is not present in the water, we are going to add lime into the water in order to make it alkaline. In such a case, it reacts with the copperas, that is FeSO4 7H2O, that is CaOH2 is the lime, that reacts and gives rise to the formation of CaSO4 calcium sulfate and also the ferrous hydroxide. Ferrous hydroxide is a component, since it has a hydroxide component that gets readily settled to the bottom, plus 7H2O is the byproduct of the reaction. If we are not going to add lime first we are going to just add copperas into the water directly. So if already the alkalinity is present in the water in form of a calcium bicarbonate, just like in the previous reaction what we discussed in case of the alum, that is we are taking out ferrous sulfate, that is copper as FeSO4 7H2O. Here the natural alkalinity CaHCO3 twice, it is present in the water. The reaction will be ferrous bicarbonate. The calcium which was in combination with the bicarbonate now changed its formation with the calcium sulfate, and ferrous got attached to the bicarbonate, ferrous bicarbonate plus CaSO4, that is calcium sulfate plus H2O. This is the case. See, in this case we didn't got any product that can readily settle to the bottom. Further the reaction has to continue. So in order to further continue the reaction, this product we have to make it settle to the bottom. So to further we are taking the same ferrous bicarbonate here, FeHCO3 twice. To this again we are adding the hydrated lime, CaOH2. So when we are adding the lime, now the reaction is taking place for the formation of the hydroxide group. So here we can see ferrous hydroxide is formed that gets settled to the bottom. This is our intention. We want to make the precipitate to settle to the bottom. If this precipitate is coming in contact with the particles get stick to this flock and get settled to the bottom. Other byproducts of the reaction are CaCO3 and H2O. These are the products of the reaction. And the ferrous hydroxide in both the cases that is formed in the reaction, further it gets oxidized in presence of the oxygen and also in the presence of the water and gets converted into ferric hydroxide and readily gets settled to the bottom. So if both the reactions are possible, but with the addition of lime we can complete the reaction. What are the advantages and disadvantages with the use of copper as a coagulant? When we go for a copper as, it is quite cheaper when we compare to the rate of the alum, but it is effective only with the pH range of 8.5. That is the condition we have. When we go for alum, we can directly use it with the water, but in this case compulsorily we need to go with the increasing of the pH, that is we have to make water alkaline, then only the reaction can be successful. That is the condition here. And what is its disadvantage? Whenever the water is colored, this is not suitable in case water is colored. But when we compare with the alum can work even water is colored. This is the condition. These are the advantages and disadvantages with the use of copper as a coagulant. Next chemical we are discussing is use of the chlorinated copper as a coagulant. Copper as we have already previously discussed. This one word is additional here, chlorinated copper as. This is a condition wherein chlorine when reacts with the copper as gives rise to the formation of the ferric sulfate and ferric chloride. So these in combination together we call it as a chlorinated copper as. Let us check what will be the reactions when these are added into the water along with the lime. This is the formula for the lime, CaOH2, hydrated lime. So first of all we shall take the Fe2SO4 twice, the ferric sulfate. So react with the hydrated lime and gives rise to the formation of CaSO4, calcium sulfate, and also the ferric hydroxide. So in the next case, whenever we take out the ferric chloride, it also reacts with the hydrated lime and gives rise to the formation of CaCl2, calcium chloride, and also the ferric hydroxide. In both the cases, the ferric hydroxide so formed is a gelatinous precipitate that helps in separation of the colloidal particles. But it can work even with the pH of when it can work whenever even pH is low. So and also it is helpful whenever even the water is colored. This is the advantages with respect to the use of chlorinated copper as a coagulant. The next and the last chemical we will be discussing here is the use of sodium aluminate as a coagulant. This is the chemical formula for sodium aluminate, Na2Al2O4. Let us check what are the reactions when we add sodium aluminate into the water. So whenever we add sodium aluminate into the water, first of all it reacts with the calcium bicarbonate alkalinity present in the water and gives rise to the combination of CaAl2O4, which readily settles to the bottom, which is calcium aluminate. Here this is the precipitate that gives rise to the formation of gelatinous precipitate. Next, other products of the reaction are Na2CO3, CO2 plus H2O. Here also it gives rise to the development of the carbon dioxide gas. Further, the sodium aluminate can also react with the calcium chloride and calcium sulfate. Let us check what is the reaction when it reacts with the calcium chloride. When it reacts with the calcium chloride, again it gives rise to the development of calcium aluminate, which readily settles down. The remaining product is NaCl. And when it reacts with the calcium sulfate, the reaction is again the formation of calcium aluminate, and the left out things are Na2SO4. This is the reactions associated with the use of sodium aluminate as a coagulant. But whenever we compare its rate, it is around 1.5 times costlier than the alum. These are the things with respect to the sodium aluminate. We have discussed use of various chemicals as a coagulant. Among them we found alum and iron salts as a most prominent. Let us compare what are the advantages whenever we are going for the iron salts and alum when we compare both of them together. When we compare, iron salts forms heavy flocks when we compare to alum, that helps in effective removal of most of the particles that are finer. And next is iron oxide. Being an oxidizing agent, it helps us to remove the hydrogen sulfide gas that is present in the water, which is a foul smelling gas. So, and also iron salts can work over various pH ranges, but whereas the alum is required to work only in a alkaline range. Next, these are the advantages with respect to using of iron salt. But when we go for iron salt, it has a problem. It creates a staining effect. When we know that when iron reacts with the oxygen, it gives rise to the form of a ferric oxide, that is a corrosion product that will be present in the water, that and also it gives rise to the development of iron bacteria in the water. So, and as we already know, iron is very corrosive in nature. It imparts corrosiveness to the water. Lastly, skill and control is properly required whenever we are going to store the iron as a coagulant. Properly we have to store, since we know it is very reactive and gives rise to the corrosion effect when it is not stored properly. These are the things related with the comparison of iron and iron salts and also the alum.